In the small Italian town of Cupertino in the year 1603, a weak and sickly child was born into poverty. His name was Joseph Dysa, the son of a struggling carpenter. The family lived in hardship so severe that debt collectors often appeared at their door. Before Joseph could even walk properly, suffering had already entered his life. As a child, Joseph was different from the other boys. He was slow in learning, forgetful, and often lost in thought. The villagers mocked him openly. Some called him useless. Others believed he would never become anything important, while the other children worked skillfully or studied with ease. Joseph wandered through the streets staring at the sky, whispering prayers beneath his breath. His mother, Francesca, was strict and deeply worried for his future. She pushed him hard, hoping discipline would make him stronger. But Joseph struggled with even simple tasks. He failed repeatedly while trying to learn trades. Apprenticeship after apprenticeship ended in disappointment. Yet hidden behind his awkwardness was a soul burning with love for God. One day, Joseph visited a small Franciscan monastery. The quiet chants of the monks echoed through the stone halls. Candles flickered softly beneath ancient crucifixes. For the first time in his life, Joseph felt peace. He longed to belong there, but even the monks doubted him. When Joseph asked to join a religious order, many rejected him immediately. Some believed he lacked intelligence. Others thought he was too clumsy for monastic life. Still, Joseph refused to give up. He accepted humiliating tasks without complaint. He cleaned stables, carried heavy loads, and washed dishes in silence. The other brothers noticed something unusual. Whenever Joseph prayed, his face changed. His eyes filled with tears, and he seemed completely consumed by divine love. Then came the moment that shocked everyone. During a prayer gathering, Joseph suddenly cried out the name of Jesus. Witnesses watched in fear and amazement as his body slowly lifted from the ground. The room fell silent. Candles trembled. Some monks dropped to their knees. Joseph himself seemed unaware of what was happening. Word spread quickly across Italy. The poor, mocked boy from Cupertino had become a mystery. Pilgrims traveled long distances hoping to witness the strange monk who levitated during prayer. But Joseph did not seek fame. In lonely chapel corners, he begged God to keep him humble. He feared pride more than suffering. While crowds whispered about miracles, Joseph continued scrubbing floors and serving the sick. The boy nobody believed in was beginning a journey that would astonish the world. Years passed, and Joseph of Cupertino became known throughout Italy as the Flying Saint. Reports of his levitations spread from monastery to monastery. Nobles, priests, soldiers, and common villagers all came hoping to witness the impossible. Inside crowded churches, candles glowed against marble walls while choirs sang sacred hymns. During moments of deep prayer, Joseph would suddenly lose awareness of the world around him. His face radiated overwhelming joy. Then, before terrified witnesses, his body would rise into the air. Sometimes, he floated near statues of Christ or the Virgin Mary. At other times, he hovered above the altar itself. Gasps filled the church. Some people screamed. Others wept openly. Church officials investigated him carefully, afraid that the events might be deception or even dark spiritual influence. Joseph was questioned again and again, but every investigation revealed the same thing: he was sincere. Joseph never boasted about miracles. In fact, he was embarrassed by the attention. Whenever people praised him, he lowered his head and called himself God's foolish donkey. He believed all glory belonged to God alone. Yet fame followed him everywhere. Crowds pressed against monastery gates just to catch a glimpse. Some hoped for healing. Others wanted proof that heaven truly existed. One evening, during a grand religious procession, thousands lined the streets carrying lanterns beneath the dark Italian sky. Priests marched slowly with incense rising into the night air. Joseph suddenly saw a beautiful image of the Virgin Mary. Overcome with emotion, he shouted with joy. Then he rose above the crowd. People froze in disbelief as Joseph floated high above the procession, his robes moving gently in the wind. The city erupted with sighs and prayers. But while the world celebrated him, Joseph carried hidden pain. Church authorities moved him, frequently from one monastery to another to avoid chaos caused by the crowds. He lived under strict obedience and isolation. Often he was forbidden from appearing in public. For years, Joseph endured loneliness. Still, he obeyed without anger. Behind monastery walls, he spent long nights praying before the crucifix. He comforted the sick, encouraged discouraged monks, and spoke gently to the poor who visited him. People saw miracles, but Joseph believed the greatest miracle was loving God completely. And soon, his final test would come. As Joseph grew older, his body became weaker, but his spirit seemed even more alive. Deep wrinkles marked his face, and years of fasting and prayer had exhausted his strength. Yet the peace surrounding him only became greater. By now, stories about him had spread across Europe. Kings and scholars spoke of the humble friar who rose during prayer. Some doubted the stories. Others believed Joseph was living proof that heaven could touch the earth. Despite the fame, Joseph desired only silence. Inside his small monastery room stood a wooden cross, a candle, and a simple bed. There were no riches, no decorations, no signs of worldly success. The man who amazed nations still lived like a servant. One cold evening, Joseph gathered the younger monks around him. His voice was weak but calm. "Love God," he whispered. "Everything else passes away." The brothers listened carefully as tears filled their eyes. Joseph often entered deep states of prayer where he seemed detached from the world. Witnesses described moments when his face shone with joy as though he were already seeing heaven itself. Then, in 1663, the final chapter arrived. Joseph became seriously ill. Monks surrounded his bed while church bells echoed softly outside the monastery walls. Candles flickered in the darkness as prayers filled the room. Though suffering greatly, Joseph remained peaceful. He asked for prayers, received the sacraments, and fixed his eyes upon the crucifix beside him. Those near him later said the room felt filled with unusual calm. Then, quietly, Joseph of Cupertino breathed his last. Silence covered the monastery. But his story did not end there. After his death, devotion to Joseph spread rapidly. Pilgrims visited his tomb seeking inspiration and healing. Many were moved not only by the miracles, but by his humility. He had been mocked as foolish, rejected as incapable, and treated as worthless. Yet God used the weakest man to reveal extraordinary grace. Years later, the church declared him a saint. Today, Saint Joseph of Cupertino is remembered as the patron saint of students, pilots, and those struggling with difficulties in learning. His life reminds the world that greatness is not measured by intelligence, fame, or power. Sometimes, the souls closest to heaven are the ones that world misunderstands the most. And somewhere beyond the clouds, Joseph once gazed upon so often. The humble friar who floated above the earth now rests forever in the presence of God.